Blimps are trash, and I'll show you exactly why in this video. You all voted for a random Blimps video, so here it is. Let's dive right into it, starting off with the method. My method of testing Blimps was to create 3 different routes at various locations within my megalopolis. The Blimp Depot is a fairly large building, but it's manageable, and it isn't too much larger than the other depots from other forms of transportation. The first problem is the Blimp stations. They are massive. They take up huge amounts of space. I had trouble finding areas throughout my city where I could squeeze one in, and it usually resulted in the demolition of some buildings. Nevertheless, I managed to squeeze in 5 stops to begin my testing. The first route is set on either side of downtown, where one of the stops is near the stadiums. I expected this route to be the busiest as population density in this area is the highest. The next route is from the industrial area to a random suburb just to simulate a route between work and home. The final route is between 2 different suburbs to see what kind of effect that would have. I also made a route that stopped at each Blimp station to get an idea of what that would do as well. Now, let's move on to the bad with Blimps. I let the game run and the Blimps went out to collect some people. The stations filled up pretty quickly, and that's when I ran into my second major issue. Blimps don't carry many passengers at a time. They only carry slightly more than a normal bus, 35 to be exact. That number is atrocious, especially for the number of people lining up to use the Blimps as a legitimate form of public transportation. Even the stations with the lowest usage had a line of people waiting to get on the Blimp. This is not okay. I decided to take a look at what the Blimps were actually doing en route. That's when I noticed something truly horrifying. Look at how close the Blimps get to each other when they pass. We don't need another disaster like the Hindenburg. These Blimps get too close to each other for my own comfort, and even though nothing bad will happen because it's just a video game, it doesn't stop me from thinking of real life events. I mean, look at what happened here. The Blimps smacked each other. If you think that won't happen again, well, you're wrong, because I managed to replicate it here. Enough about that. My next major complaint about Blimps is they are so slow. They fly slow. They land slow. They won't let people get off the Blimp until engines are turned off, which takes forever. Then the Blimp has to turn the engines back on to take off, which takes forever. And then the Blimps take off slow, just to repeat the process all over again. Oh, and while the Blimp is at the station, another Blimp cannot enter the station except at this one for some stupid reason where the Blimps overlap each other. All Blimps have to wait for the Blimp in the station, which only slows things down even more. All in all, Blimps are slow and I can't stand it. Not only are Blimps slow, they also attract a large number of people to use this as a public transportation option. This option should not be so popular. Look at all the people standing around waiting. The Blimps don't have enough capacity and are way too slow to handle this volume of people trying to take Blimps to get to their destination. So now that I've gotten a taste of what Blimps can do at the normal level, I decided to test it out with maximum funding. I increased every single line to 500% to get the maximum amount of Blimps in the air at once. And then I waited for the Blimps to make it to their first stop. And I waited. And I waited. And I waited. And I waited. I waited an entire 20 minutes until all Blimps were finally in the air and picking up passengers. Surely the efficiency would be much higher than it was before, right? Wrong. It was actually worse than before. How did this happen? What kind of garbage transportation system gets worse with more funding? Oh yeah, Blimps. All in all, Blimps are straight trash. You should not use Blimps as a legitimate form of public transportation unless you want it to fail miserably. Don't go anywhere yet. The video is not over. I haven't talked about the good with Blimps. Blimps have a certain charm to them as they add some life to the airspace above your city. I think it's really neat looking to have Blimps fly over your stadiums. I managed this by putting 2 stations side by side, which takes up an enormous amount of space. I set up the path I wanted the blimp to take, and I had the blimps go back and forth between the two stations. This way, people won't use this as a form of public transportation, and I get to watch blimps float around my city. There's something about watching blimps float around that feels peaceful. It makes sense for blimps to be in the game, but I wish it wasn't in the form of public transportation, but rather in the form of attracting tourism. There's walking tours in the game. Why can't blimps be another form of a walking tour, but in the air? I think if the developers of City Skylines changed blimps to focus on tourism, blimps would be a hell of a lot more useful than they currently are. Subscribe.